Chapter 6. Escape and Growth. Alya's Awakening. The cold night wind howled across the desolate wasteland, stirring up dust and scattered remains of bones. Alya slowly opened her eyes, her mind still entangled in the chaotic memories of her escape. She remembered the relentless pursuit of the Black Armor Legion, Ren's chilling pronouncement, and that moment when her soul beast underwent an unprecedented transformation, tearing through space and engulfing her into the darkness. Yet, now, everything was eerily silent. She propped herself up, her gaze sweeping across her surroundings. The wasteland was barren and lifeless, the sky shrouded in a thick gray mist, devoid of sunlight, devoid of stars. The air reeked of decay and the presence of the undead. The ground was littered with shattered stone pillars and crumbling ruins, remnants of what seemed to be a battlefield long forgotten by time. Her heart clenched. Where is this place? Taking a deep breath, she tried to stand, but a strange fluctuation surged within her. It felt as if something was infiltrating her soul, foreign, yet oddly familiar. She looked down at her hands, noticing faint traces of ethereal blue energy coursing beneath her skin. This energy resonated with her, as though... Could it be? She murmured, her pulse quickening. Her soul beast, the very creature that had gone berserk in her moment of peril, lay silently beside her. The once violent aura had subdued, but within its deep eyes flickered an unsettled glow, as if still processing its own transformation. Alya could sense that it was recovering, becoming stronger than before. But this growth wasn't something she had consciously controlled. It was instinctive, primal. She reached out, her fingers brushing against its cold forehead. In a hushed voice, she asked, "What are you?" The soul beast remained quiet, merely watching her with an unreadable expression. Reverence of the dead forcing herself to calm down, Alya focused on assessing her situation. Understanding where she was came first. As she walked forward, she caught faint echoes within the wind, deep, sorrowful murmurs, like the wails of ancient warriors or whispers of the undead. She hadn't gone far before she spotted several vague figures wandering in the distance. Her instincts screamed at her to retreat, and she tensed, studying them carefully. They were not human. The figures were undead, draped in tattered armor, gripping rusted spears and broken blades. Their hollow eyes glowed with eerie blue light, and their movements were slow but deliberate, as if trapped in an eternal patrol over this forsaken land. Yet strangely enough, they did not attack her. Instead, the moment their gazes fell upon her, they hesitated. The feeling was not hostility. It was something else. Reverence? Alya's brow furrowed in confusion. She instinctively stepped back, but at that very moment, one of the Undead Knights suddenly dropped to one knee, lowering its head, an unmistakable gesture of submission. "That's impossible," Alya whispered in disbelief. She was human, a fugitive. Why would the undead kneel before her? Before she could make sense of it, the undead figures slowly faded into the mist, as if their brief appearance had been merely to confirm her presence before retreating back into the silence. Alya's mind swirled with more questions than answers, and, just as she tried to process what had happened, a familiar, ragged breath sounded behind her. Karl's arrival. "Alya, you're alive?" Alya spun around, eyes widening as she saw a bloodied figure staggering toward her. Karl. His left arm bore a deep wound, his armor was damaged, and his face was streaked with dirt and blood, evidence of a brutal battle. Yet, despite his injuries, his gaze remained sharp, and he still gripped his sword tightly, prepared to fight at a moment's notice. Alya's chest tightened. She rushed forward, catching him before he could collapse. "Karl, how did you get here? Are you all right?" Karl took a ragged breath, forcing a weak smirk. "Don't worry. I'm not that easy to kill." His eyes flickered with wariness as he took in their surroundings. "But where the hell are we? Last thing I remember, your soul beast erupted. And then I got pulled in too." Alya bit her lip. "I don't know either. But this place, it's not normal." Karl's gaze darkened as he scanned the wasteland. His sharp eyes caught the fading traces of the undead soldiers, and his frown deepened. "Alya, what exactly did you see just now?" She hesitated, then told him everything. The undead warriors, their silence, their hesitation, and their inexplicable act of kneeling before her. Karl listened quietly, his expression unreadable. When she finished, he remained silent for a long time, his grip tightening around his sword. Finally, he exhaled deeply and muttered, "Alya, you might be more special than you think." Her breath hitched. "I'm just a mercenary, a fugitive." Karl slowly shook his head. "If you were just an ordinary person, those undead wouldn't bow to you. You might really be what Ren called a remnant of the undead kingdom." Alya's stomach twisted. Her mind screamed at her to reject it, to deny any connection to the fallen kingdom. But the fragments of memories, her soul beast's transformation, the undead's reverence, everything was pointing toward a truth she wasn't ready to face. Karl saw the turmoil in her eyes and sighed, resting a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't overthink it for now. We need to find shelter first. Once we're safe, we'll figure things out." Alya swallowed the lump in her throat, forcing herself to steady her breathing. Then, she gave a firm nod. A new journey begins. Despite the unanswered questions weighing on her mind, one thing was clear. She had to survive. Meeting Karl's determined gaze, she turned toward the endless wasteland, stepping forward into the unknown. Little did they know, hidden deep within the misty ruins, a pair of cold, calculating eyes had been watching them all along. The Black Armor Legion had not given up their pursuit. The desolate wasteland was shrouded in endless darkness, with only scattered ghostly blue flames flickering in the distance, illuminating the crumbling ruins and twisted withered trees. The air was thick with the nauseating stench of decay, as if the entire world was steeped in the whispers of the dead. Alya and Karl stood side by side in this eerie land, their senses on high alert for any threats lurking in the shadows. A wasteland that offers no respite. "What is this place?" Alya asked in a hushed voice, her gaze drifting warily across the desolate landscape. Karl wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and gave a wry smile. "The real question isn't where, but rather, who else is here?" Though his tone remained casual, his eyes were sharp, and his hand never strayed far from his sword hilt. His body bore the marks of battle. His armor was battered, his arms streaked with wounds left by the Black Armor Legion's blades. It was clear that he had fought through a deadly struggle upon crossing the gate of the undead. "You're hurt." Alya frowned, her gaze lingering on the blood seeping from Karl's arm. Karl waved off her concern. "I'll live. But we should be more worried about the residents of this place." Just as his words fell, an icy wind howled through the wasteland, carrying with it the guttural snarls of roaming undead. The skeletal creatures dragged their broken limbs across the ruined earth, their hollow eye sockets glowing with eerie green light. Alya gripped the hilt of her sword tighter, her palms damp with cold sweat. She had survived many deadly battles before, but the oppressive presence of this land surpassed anything she had ever encountered. "If you want to leave here alive, you need to become stronger," Karl said quietly. His gaze locked onto the approaching undead. He drew his long sword, its steel glinting coldly in the dim light. "I'll teach you how to fight." The Undead Hunt. A trial begins. The undead closed in, their chilling presence thickening the air. Karl surveyed the encroaching horde and smirked. Looks like they want to test our abilities. Before his words fully settled, the undead let out ear-piercing shrieks and lunged toward them. Lesson 1. Stay calm. Karl sidestepped a skeletal warrior's attack with effortless grace and severed its neck in a single stroke. In battle, fear will distort your movements. Alya took a deep breath, steadying her grip on her sword. As a decayed undead warrior lunged at her with razor-sharp claws, her instincts urged her to retreat. She barely managed to evade the strike. "Don't back down." Karl's sharp command rang out. "Dodging isn't the goal. You have to seize the moment to strike back." Forcing herself to hold her ground, Alya bit down on her fear, pivoted to the side, and swung her sword at the undead's ribs. The blade cleaved through its rotting frame, but it wasn't enough to finish the creature. With an agonized shriek, the undead retaliated, its claws slashing toward her shoulder. Karl moved in an instant, his sword driving through the undead's skull, shattering it completely. He turned to Alya, his gaze intense. "Your strike wasn't precise. Battle isn't about brute force. It's about striking at the enemy's weak points." Alya nodded, determination burning in her eyes. She adjusted her stance and braced herself as more undead approached. Mastering swordsmanship and soul energy, the battle dragged on, and the number of undead steadily dwindled. During a brief moment of respite, Karl took the opportunity to instruct Alya on combat techniques. "Your swordsmanship lacks decisiveness." He gestured toward the shattered remains of an undead warrior. "Every strike must carry the intent to kill. Hesitation will only leave you vulnerable." Alya wiped the sweat from her brow, still catching her breath. "I've never received formal sword training." Karl nodded in understanding. "That's fine. But your soul energy is stronger than most. You need to learn how to channel it into your swordplay." He demonstrated with a swift slash of his blade. As his sword cut through the air, a faint, silver light trailed behind it. Soul energy is key. Only by mastering it will your strikes become truly lethal. Alya stared down at her hands, attempting to draw out her soul energy and channel it into her sword. However, the energy wavered, flickering inconsistently, refusing to take shape. "Relax. Don't force it." Karl reached out and grasped her wrist, his voice steady. "Controlling soul energy is like mastering the sword. It takes practice." His palm was warm and firm, grounding her in the moment. Alya closed her eyes, inhaling deeply, and focused inward, trying to sense the energy coursing through her. Then, something stirred. A faint glow of blue light shimmered along her blade. Her eyes snapped open, and without hesitation, she swung, her sword at the last remaining undead. The blade, infused with soul energy, cleaved through the skeletal warrior effortlessly. With a final wail, the creature crumbled into dust, vanishing completely. Alya stood frozen, staring at her weapon, her breath caught in disbelief. She had done it. The true meaning of battle, Karl observed her with an approving nod. That is the true essence of battle, not just slaughter, but the mastery of one's own power. Alya remained silent for a moment, before speaking in a low voice. "I used to think that battle was nothing more than mindless killing. But now, I see it's more about control." A rare smile crossed Karl's lips. "Exactly. You've taken the first step." Alya turned her gaze toward the distant wasteland, her expression resolute. She knew this was only the beginning. The true challenge still lay ahead. The desolate wasteland stretched endlessly into the darkness, the air thick with the stench of decay and death. Alya and Karl trudged through the barren land until a ruined structure emerged before them. It was an ancient relic of the Undead Kingdom, its stone pillars fractured, its crumbling walls covered in obscure inscriptions, as if whispering the remnants of a long-forgotten history. "This place is the ruin of the Undead Kingdom?" Alya murmured, her palm brushing against a stone tablet engraved with ancient runes. A strange energy surged through her fingertips, flowing into her body. Karl stood beside her, his gaze sweeping the surroundings, with caution. The aura here is unusual. It feels like a place of sealing. Alya was about to respond, when a deep rumble echoed from the depths of the ruins, as if something dormant had been awakened. A suffocating pressure crashed over them, momentarily stalling her breath. "They're coming," Karl murmured, drawing his sword with a grave expression. From the darkness of the ruins, a shadowy figure emerged. It was a towering undead knight, clad in tattered black armor. His hollow eye sockets burned with eerie green soul fire, and an oppressive aura radiated from his entire being. "You have finally arrived." The knight's deep voice reverberated through the ruins, as though it had traveled across centuries of time. Alya tensed, gripping her sword tightly. "You know me?" The undead knight was silent for a moment before slowly nodding. "Your bloodline cannot be concealed. You are the heir of the undead royalty, the bearer of a cursed lineage, and the only one who can change everything." Alya's pupils contracted, shock rippling through her. She had never once imagined being labeled as the heir of the undead royalty. It was too foreign, too absurd. "I am not of the undead royalty," she instinctively retorted, gripping her sword tighter. I am... The undead knight stared at her in silence before slowly raising his massive sword. "No matter how much you deny it, the mark of your bloodline remains unchanged. Only by passing the trial can you truly master your power. Otherwise, it will one day consume you." "A trial?" Karl frowned and stepped protectively in front of Alya. "She's not ready." The undead knight ignored him and strode forward, the grinding of his armor against itself echoing ominously. "Combat is the only proof. If you cannot defeat me, you are unworthy of wielding this power." Alya took a deep breath, forcing herself to stay calm. She knew that running away was futile. This was more than just a battle. It was a test of her very existence. Lifting her sword, she pointed it directly at the undead knight. "Come then." The knight wasted no words. In the next instant, he moved like a tempest, his great sword cleaving through the air, wreathed in the chilling aura of death. Alya's eyes widened, and she barely dodged to the side. Even so, the residual force of the attack sliced through her, arm leaving a trail of blood. The pain burned through her nerves, but she steadied herself, retaliating with swift precision. She struck at the knight, but he merely raised his sword effortlessly, deflecting her attack. The impact sent a jarring tremor up her arm, nearly making her drop her weapon. "Too weak," the knight said coldly, disdain lacing his tone. Alya clenched her teeth and lunged again, but every attack was parried with ease. She was panting within moments, while the knight remained composed, unmoved. "You hesitate," he remarked. "Your sword lacks true intent to kill." Alya flinched. She was hesitant. The revelation of her supposed identity had shaken her, and now she was being forced to prove herself in battle. "If you cannot accept your nature, your power will destroy you." The undead knight's sword descended once more, its speed blinding. Alya barely managed to raise her sword in defense, but the sheer force sent her staggering backward, her knees nearly buckling. Her fingers trembled from the pain, and something within her teetered on the edge of breaking. "Alya!" Karl's voice rang out. "Don't hesitate! Battle isn't just about survival. It's about taking control of your own fate." Fate. Alya's breath came ragged. She looked down at her hands, blood dripping from her fingertips, vivid against the bleak ruins. She understood now. This wasn't just a fight. It was a choice. She had to embrace her power, no matter where it came from. Closing her eyes, she reached deep within, sensing the latent force of the undead soul beast residing in her. A surge of energy erupted from her core, spreading through her limbs like wildfire. Her eyes snapped open, glowing faintly with an ethereal blue light. The sword in her grasp hummed in resonance, a deep vibration pulsing through the air. The Undead Knight hesitated briefly, sensing the shift in her presence. Alya exhaled, her resolve unshaken. I am not of the undead royalty. I refuse to be. Cursed. But I will control my own power. With a single motion, she swung her sword. This time, it wasn't just steel meeting steel. It was soul energy, honed and focused. The strike carved through the knight's armor, leaving a deep fissure in its wake. The Undead Knight stilled. Then, a low chuckle resonated from within his hollow chest. Good. You have finally taken the first step. He withdrew his sword, his gaze unfathomable. You have passed the trial. Alya panted heavily, her sword trembling slightly in her grip. Her body was exhausted, yet her mind had never felt so clear. The knight studied her for a moment longer before speaking again. Your journey has only just begun. Ahead, you will face stronger foes and deeper truths. From the shadows of the ruins, an ancient gate groaned open, revealing a path into the unknown. Alya tightened her grip on her sword, her gaze steady. She stepped forward. In the darkness of the ruins, the Undead Knight stood in silence, his ghostly green soul flames flickering within his hollow eye sockets, as if peering through the mists of time to awaken forgotten memories. His voice was deep and ancient, carrying the weight of sorrow. Alya, who do you think you are? The Undead Knight asked slowly. Alya froze. She had always believed she was just an ordinary village girl who had awakened a cursed undead soul beast by chance, only to be thrust into endless pursuit and battles. However, from the moment she set foot in these ruins, her entire world had been turned upside down. The Undead Knight extended his hand, and a faint glow emerged in his palm, materializing into a distant and fragmented vision. The fall of the Undead Kingdom. In the vision, a magnificent undead capital stood tall among the mountains, its pale soul flames illuminating the night sky. Countless undead warriors guarded the city walls. But in the next moment, the once glorious city was engulfed in black flames, swallowed by destruction. Screams and war drums intertwined in a cacophony of despair. Alya held her breath, her hands trembling slightly. What is this? The Undead Knight's voice was as heavy as thunder. This was once the Undead Kingdom, a dynasty once hailed as the Eternal Land. But the human empire feared our strength. They allied with other races and waged war, utterly destroying our kingdom. In the vision, warriors clad in black armor brandished blood-stained swords. A man wearing imperial robes stood atop the city walls, his gaze cold and merciless. The forbidden experiments of the imperial family, the Undead Knight continued, were born from this massacre. They stole our secrets, stripped the undead of their right to exist, and sought to turn our power into their tool. Alya's heart pounded violently. She could hardly believe what she was seeing, but it was the Undead Knight's next words that truly shattered her world. And you, Alya, are the last surviving bloodline of the undead royal family. Alya's mind exploded in chaos. That's impossible, she muttered, stepping back in disbelief. How could she be a descendant of the undead royal family? She had grown up as an orphan in a small village. How could she be connected to a kingdom that had perished long ago? The Undead Knight watched her reaction and spoke calmly. Your bloodline does not lie. Your soul beast and your power are proof of your heritage. Your very existence was never meant for that insignificant village. Alya's breathing became rapid, her heart hammering in her chest. She couldn't accept this. Karl, who had been silent, finally spoke. His deep gaze met hers as he stepped forward and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. Alya, you don't have to be bound by the past. She looked up at him in a daze. Karl's voice was gentle yet firm. No matter where your bloodline comes from, no matter what happened to the Undead Kingdom, you still have the right to decide your own future. Alya clenched her teeth. Inside her mind, two voices battled fiercely. One voice whispered, "You are the heir of the undead royal family. You must seek vengeance. You must bear this destiny." Another voice murmured, "It doesn't matter who you were born as. What matters is who you choose to become." Finally, she took a deep breath, lifted her head, and a determined light ignited in her eyes. "I will not run away," Alya said slowly. "But I also won't let my bloodline dictate my path. I will control my own power, not the other way around." The Undead Knight studied her for a long moment before a nearly imperceptible smile flickered across his lips. In that case, the Undead Knight slowly raised his hand, and a blue spectral light coalesced into an ancient relic. It was a silver emblem engraved with runes, with a gemstone at its center that burned like an eternal soul flame. A strange energy radiated from it, making Alya's soul power stir in response. "This is the Nether emblem, the symbol of the undead royal family," the Undead Knight said in a low voice. "It holds the oldest power of the royal bloodline. Only one of true lineage can wield it." Alya reached out, her fingers lightly brushing against the emblem. The moment she touched it, a surge of immense power flooded into her body, and it was as if countless whispers from the dead echoed in her ears. The Undead Knight watched her closely. "Take it. Seek the truth for yourself. Your future is yours to decide." Alya took a deep breath, clenching the emblem in her palm. She could feel its power and the responsibility it carried. She was no longer lost. She had made her choice. Karl smiled slightly, a look of quiet relief in his eyes. "Looks like it's time for us to move on." Alya nodded. She was ready to face whatever lay ahead. But just as they prepared to leave the ruins, the Undead Knight's expression suddenly darkened. He lifted his gaze toward the distance, his tone turning grave. "They're here." Alya and Karl turned sharply, their eyes locking onto the entrance of the ruins. Beyond the ruins, a wave of dark figures rapidly approached. It was the Black Legion. Their black banners fluttered in the night wind. Iron hooves crushed the barren earth beneath them. The air grew thick with the stench of blood and the weight of impending slaughter. Alya's fingers tightened around her sword. She knew the true battle was only just beginning.